State Fullerton has done it. They've gone from 15-16
to champions of college baseball. Welcome to the 1544 Miles to Omaha podcast, talking about the past, present, and future of Cal State Fullerton baseball.
And he drives this one high and deep to center field. Elliott carry all the way back, and that one is gone. A three-run shot for Timmy Richards.
Ripped through into left field. Suzuki with a hit. Here comes Hunter Harris with the throw to the plate. It's not in time, and Fullerton is on top.
Hit to center. Fellhauer coming over. The Cal State Fullerton Titans are going to the Super Regionals again.
Here's your host, Dave Lamb.
Welcome to the 1544 Miles to Omaha podcast. This is episode 67 and part 2 of our conversation with head coach Kirk Saarloos, the head coach for the TCU Horned Frogs and legendary Titan baseball pitcher. In this upcoming episode, he'll talk more about his career in professional baseball and also his transition into coaching, and also give you a little bit of a taste of what's to come later on in the season, coming up in 2023, when the TCU Horned Frogs will host the Cal State Fullerton Titans in a non-conference weekend series. So stay tuned, thanks for listening, and up next is part 2 of our conversation with head coach Kirk Saarloos. After Omaha, you start your pro career with the Astros, and you debuted in the Bigs just about a year after playing in Omaha. And you mentioned earlier in the year, or earlier on the podcast, that the pipe dream of eventually playing in the major leagues. How did you advance so quickly to the point where you were drafted in June, and then probably about a year later, you're pitching for the Astros?
Yeah, I think it was just about momentum, coming off of that summer of Team USA, rolling right into my senior year and having a great senior year, and then rolling right into my first summer of professional baseball. I threw so many innings. I think I threw 165 innings my senior year of college, so they wanted me to come and go right to A-ball and be a closer. So I went there and threw another 30 or so innings and had success there. So it was almost like, okay, I did it with Team USA, I did it with Cal State Fullerton, and now I've done it in pro ball. And I just didn't know any better, I think. I felt so confident that I could kind of do whatever I wanted to do and have success. So, you roll that into the first spring training, and my whole goal was to just make the AA roster. That was my one goal. I want to make AA roster. And so made the AA roster, and my first start, I gave up. We were in El Paso, and I think we went 1, 2, 3 in the first inning, and then I gave up 9 earned runs in the second inning. And in college baseball, you'd be on the bench way before giving up 9, but I gave up 9 in the second inning, and then I pitched a scoreless third and a scoreless fourth. And at that time, Mike Maddox was our pitching coach. After, I think 2 days later, we're in the bullpen, and he's like, we're talking, and he's like, Kirk, why don't you ever pitch in? And I'm, well, I came from a place where, the bats are deadly weapons, and there's no need to pitch in. Umpires would give you off the plate strikes, and we just keep expanding. And he's like, well, these guys have wood bats in their hands. You have to pitch in. If you don't pitch in, you're never going to get away with being able to throw stuff on the outer half. So all we did the next bullpen was just work on throwing fastballs inside. From that moment, the game plan was the first time through the order, we're going to throw nothing but fastballs. Anytime I throw a fastball, it would have to be inside versus a righty or lefty the first time through the order, just to get them set up that I'm going to pitch inside. And so the next, I think, 80 innings gave up a total of 2 runs. And if you do that, if you give up only 2 runs in 80 innings in AA, you're going to get an opportunity to pitch for the big league. So that was kind of an unbelievable experience in terms of being called up straight from AA and having an opportunity to pitch in the big league. So pretty neat.
I've had the fortunate opportunity to talk to a number of Titan alumni that have been called up and played in the majors. Justin Garza, Dustin Garneau, and they gave us their story of how they were told that they were going to get the call up. What's your story?
Well, the interesting part about that is my wife, Kristen, and I, at the time we were engaged, and we had planned that we were going to get married during the AA All-Star break. And so the AA All-Star break, I believe, was a Friday, Saturday, Sunday in the middle of June. And so I was about to leave on Friday to go to Seattle, where my wife's from, and the wedding was going to be on Sunday. And anyway, the All-Star game was going to be at Round Rock, where that's the home ballpark of the team I was playing for. And so I was elected as the starting pitcher for the game and had to decline because I was going to go get married. And so I'm about to leave on a Friday to fly back to Seattle, and I get a phone call from our general manager, Jerry Hunsicker. And Jerry, he asked me, how things are going. And I was just thinking, okay, he's giving me a call, just maybe being a nice guy and saying, hey, have fun at your wedding, blah, blah, blah. Well, he ended up saying, hey, we're going to we need you to be in Milwaukee on Monday. Are you going to be able to do that? And I said, well, what do you mean? He goes, well, on Tuesday, you're going to make your big league debut. So I went from getting on a plane to go to Seattle to get married and thinking about nothing but the wedding to, holy smokes, I'm getting married on Sunday, leaving for Milwaukee on Monday, and pitching in a big league game on Tuesday. So kind of that 72-hour period was one I'll never forget for sure.
So I guess the wedding reception was a pretty good fun time, knowing that was in the back of your mind.
Yeah, and I would say a large portion of the wedding party ended up flying out to Milwaukee and being part of the big league debut. So I always kind of joke around. People say, oh, where, you guys got married. Where'd you go on your honeymoon? I said, we went to a hotel in Milwaukee. And people kind of look at me weird. I'm like, no, I'm just kidding. We did go to Milwaukee for our honeymoon, but we had a real honeymoon once the season was over. So, but the crazy thing is you show up, and that was the first time I didn't know anybody on that big league team because I was in minor league camp my first spring training. And so I get called up, and I go straight from AA, and I get to the field on Tuesday, the day I'm going to start, and I have no idea what I'm doing. I got to go out for BP because, back then, National League pitchers hit. I'm looking around, I'm going, holy cow, there's Jeff Bagwell and Biggio, and I've never met any of these guys. So that was a lot of fun. And then, so that was on a Tuesday, and on Wednesday, I'm so used to minor league baseball, I didn't think anything of this. So on Wednesday, we have getaway day. So the game is at 1:00. So at about 10 in the morning, I'm walking the streets of Milwaukee with my wife, and our traveling secretary calls me and is like, where are you at? I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, well, today's game is at 1:00, right? And I didn't even think of it. I just got done throwing in a big league game the day before, and I'm just thinking the next game is at 7:00 as well the next day. And so he's like, yeah, the whole team's on the field and you're not here. You might want to get here. And I'm like, holy cow, I'm running around with my head cut off. I hurry up, I get dressed, I get my luggage, I bring it to the field, I run into the locker room, and Bagwell's in there, and he's like, what's up, Rook? I'm like, nothing. And he knew what's going on. Like, let me give you a tip here. Go get your workout clothes on, go back in the weight room, all right? Get a lift in, and once guys come in from BP, walk out like you had been here all day and you're sweaty from working out. So I did that. I think he saved me a couple $100 from being fined for missing BP my second ever day as a big leaguer.
That is a fantastic story, and the fact that you always hear about the rookie hazing, and he could have gone one of two ways. He could have completely and totally ratted you out, and instead he went the other way and threw you a life preserver.
Yeah, but then later on I think our flight home, maybe it was our next trip. Anyway, that was back before direct deposit. Actually, direct deposit had just happened, but anyway, I hadn't had it set up, so I get my first big league check, and I'm like, this is awesome. And then Bagwell calls me to the back of the plane. Is like, hey, this is your first check. I figured maybe we would trade checks. Just you would get mine this 2-week pay period, and I'll get yours. Welcome to the big leagues. And I was like, seriously? Because at the time he was making like $18 million a year. So I get his check, and it's like, it's like $1 million or something. And I'm like, I can't believe it just happened. I go sit down, and then I kind of look back at it, and then I'm like, wait a minute. This is direct deposit. This means absolutely nothing. It's just a piece of paper. And mine, I didn't have direct deposit set up yet. So my first big league check is in the back with Bagwell, and him and all of the older guys are just laughing, having a good time because the rookie just got his first big league check given to Bagwell, and I've got his non-negotiable direct deposit, basically receipt of his $1 million paycheck.
Oh, that's fantastic. Hopefully you didn't sign the check and then just hand it to him.
No, he had me sign it right there.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
It's all right. It's all right. He paid me back. He paid me back later on.
Okay. Wow. That's fantastic. All right. So roughly a year later, you and 5 others combined for that historic no-hitter of the Yankees. How was that compare it to your solo no-hitter in college?
Well, it was a lot different. I got 4 outs in that game as opposed to 27 outs in the college one. But now on that one, in terms of not knowing a no-hitter's happening, I think a lot of people, well, there's some guys that didn't even know until after we got the last out. But, when the starting pitcher goes down in the first inning and, you use 6 pitchers to get a no-hitter, the cool thing was it was in Yankee Stadium. And for me, the cool thing is my last out was striking out Derek Jeter. So I didn't strike many people out in professional baseballs, but just to be able to strike him out in a game where we threw a no-hitter is pretty special. But yeah, after we got the last out, everyone's excited on the field, and Jeff Kent was our second baseman, and he looked at Biggio and was like, why in the heck why is everybody so excited? It's just a win in Yankee Stadium. And Biggio was like, Jeff, we just threw a no-hitter. He's like, oh, that's cool. And that was about it. But, yeah, that was pretty special just because, a no-hitter in professional baseball, especially that hadn't been done yet, 6 pitchers. So that was pretty cool to be part of.
So saying that you didn't strike too many people out, but Derek Jeter is one of those in your repertoire, if you will, or if you're a feather in your cap, who were the guys that you just absolutely hated facing? I mean, I've seen, we all know that Tony Gwynn was a phenomenal hitter, and Greg Maddux always talked about how, he could always get people off balance and use off speeds and all that stuff, and he could always get somebody out, but he could never get Tony Gwynn out. Was there a Kirk Saarloos Nemisis out there, that there was a batter that absolutely just you dreaded any time you saw him coming to the plate?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them are going to be left-handed. It was the left-handers that could stay on baseballs and hit it out of the ballpark opposite way. I always used to feast off guys that would get pull happy. And so, guys like Jim Tomei, Fred McGriff, guys that would really, stay on baseballs and hit them out of the ballpark to different areas and didn't try to get too pull happy with me, were the guys that gave me trouble. Back in the Albert Pujols, obviously being a right-handed hitter was as good as it gets in terms of, that was right in his heyday. Yeah, a lot of the left-handed hitters were usually the best ones against me. But then there's some really random ones where like I had really good success against David Ortiz for I have no idea what reason. So it just, certain times you get certain guys' number, and for whatever reason they don't see you. But I felt like, most lefties saw me pretty decently, and the guys that had some juice and would do it to all fields were the guys that really gave me problems, just because I didn't have enough velocity to get people to blow it by them. So I really had to rely on movement and changing speeds. And when guys, for the most part, I tried to throw just enough strikes that they would swing at the pitches out of the zone. And when guys like Fred McGriff, like Jim Tomei, guys that weren't scared to hit with 2 strikes, guys that would wait me out until I left the ball up, were the guys that would have success. So, yeah, thanks for bringing that up.
Sorry about that.
Nightmares. I don't know, did he get in the Hall of Fame?
Who's that?
Like Fred McGriff. I felt like
He just
Fred
did.
might
They just announced that the crime dog got in.
See, there you go. So now I don't feel quite as bad.
Yeah, your Nemisis was a Hall of Famer, so that's not too bad, right?
That's right.
All right, let's put a bow on the pro career and start talking about coaching a little bit. So you got your start coaching back at Fullerton. Dave Serrano, who, bringing it full circle, you mentioned, saw you at those area code games and was integral in your recruitment process. He brings you on as an undergraduate assistant, and then you eventually stayed on and were the pitching coach with Rick Vanderhook. When did you know you wanted to coach, and how was the transition going from pro ball to becoming a coach?
I always knew that once I was done playing, I always felt like coaching was something I wanted to do, just because those 4 years at the Fullerton were some of my favorites. I felt like you can really make a difference in a young kid's life in terms of not just on the field but off the field, and really want to be a part of that. Like, for me, professional baseball, you don't have as much of an impact, so college baseball is always something that I wanted to do. And then I had to go finish my degree, and so I did that in the summer and fall of 2000, and I guess it would be 10, with Coach Serrano as the undergrad assistant. And that was a big deal for me because Coach allowed me to be able to really cut my teeth as being a pitching coach. He really gave me a lot of free reign in terms of the day-to-day operations of the pitching staffs, and organizing throwing schedules and watching and teaching through bullpens and watching him do his job. I mean, even when I played, I would always stand by Coach Horton or by Coach Serrano, and always kind of like the small details of the game. And so to get back into that was pretty fun. And then then Coach left for Tennessee, and Coach Vanderhook got the job. And I owe a lot of things to Coach Vanderhook, just because here I am, just a unproven, first-time coach, and he hired me as my first-time full-time job as pitching coach, and that was special for me, and I think I owe a ton to him just to give me that opportunity, and then to get an opportunity at TCU, where I felt like being in the Big 12, and it was really hard to leave, obviously, my alma mater and where my family's from, and but just saw an opportunity with what TCU was doing, and wanted to see what that looked like, and kind of stuck it out quite a while, and now I'm finally the head coach, and it really has been a special time in my life to be able to not only be a coach but now be a head coach.
Well, I had a chance to talk with Dan Rickaball, who was the pitching coach at Cal State Fullerton a couple of years ago, and unfortunately, with the situation that went down at Long Beach State, he was thrust into kind of the interim head coaching position, and he admitted, he says, I don't want to be a head coach. I don't want to sit in the big chair. It's not for me. I'd rather be a pitching coach and stay there, and I'm good with that. When did you know that you wanted to eventually move up? And obviously when Jim left and went to Texas A&M, you were essentially the heir apparent. When did you know that you wanted to be in that big chair?
I think there was certain times, like Stanford was interested in me becoming the head coach at Stanford, and like I told you, Stanford eliminated us twice, so I don't know if that's why I turned it down or not. But Rice also was interested, and I think at that time there was a little bit of, okay, do I want to do this? Do I not want to do this? Do I want to do it somewhere other than TCU? And so I always knew I wanted to be a head coach to run my own program, but I wanted it to be at the right time and on my terms. And if that ended up meaning that I turned down some other jobs and never became a head coach, I would have been fine with that. I've just been blessed with a great opportunity at TCU, where I've been able to raise a family and, live 1 mile from the baseball field and have a great network of people here in Fort Worth. And I always felt like if it really, for me, it was going to be TCU or maybe one or two other schools or nothing. And so now that I'm doing it and in this chair, there is a lot of awesome things, and there's a lot of things that sometimes you're like, man, it was a lot easier when you're the pitching coach and recruiting coordinator, not the head coach. But I think that's with any job. With a lot of responsibility comes a lot of responsibility. And so the big chair, you do have to make decisions that are difficult, but you also get to set the temperature for the program. you get to set the temperature for the room and have things done in a way where you'd like them to be done. And the main thing is, and my dad always told me is, you just work hard and treat people right and everything will take care of itself. So I've stuck by that and make sure that's the calling card of our program and how we want to treat our players and our kids.
You've been to Omaha at Rosenblatt Stadium, both as a player, and then you also been to Omaha 4 times since the switch to the new downtown ballpark. Do you have fondness for one over the other, or is Omaha sweet no matter what stadium the games are played in?
Yeah, I think the first time when we went in 2014, it was kind of for me, it was a little bit of a letdown just because all my memories were Rosenblatt, and all my memories took place in that stadium. And so when we went back there, you go to the parking lot outside the zoo, and you can see where home plate is and the foul poles and everything of where Rosenblatt. So it was a little bit sad to go back to the first year, but then I started to think, when we went back in years 2, 3, and 4 in 2015, 16, 17, I kind of my perception changed a little bit of it, just because our players don't know anything about Rosenblatt. This is their Rosenblatt. The new ballpark, it's creating memories and history for this generation of players. And so, there is something to be said about, the newness of the ballpark, it being downtown. They've really revitalized that area in terms of restaurants and hotels, and it's really an amazing place where it's a one-stop shop now with it being downtown, as opposed to Rosenblatt being, about 10 or so miles, a little bit uptown. And so, I think now it's creating its own special, unique things that Rosenblatt did for itself. Rosenblatt was a much more hitter's ballpark, and with, the bright seating in the orange and blues and the seats and chairs there, and the zoo in the back, behind right field, and a lot of history of different things there. Well, now the history is going to be at the new TD Ameritrade or whatever they're calling it now, and I think it's got its own special feel to it.
So you did mention that 4-year run of TCU going to the College World Series. 2 of those years, 15 and then 17, the Titans were also there. 2-part question. One, was it special to be there with your alma mater in the same Elite 8, the final 8 out there in Omaha? And then 2, from your players' perspective, you could have had an entire senior class who knew nothing but Omaha. How did you temper their ho-hum, it's just, we're going back to Omaha again, this is my 3rd trip, this is my 4th trip, how do you do that? So let's tackle the first one of being there in 15 and 17 when Fullerton was there.
Yeah, that was really cool, just because the history, and what they went through, because you went through it yourself of playing in the Big West, and then being going through a regional and a super regional. You've been where those guys, you played a good one. You know what it is to be a Fullerton baseball player, and so I had a lot of pride in terms of when they were also there during those 2 years, just because I still love Fullerton. I still love everything about it, and I still love to see them have success. So that was super neat. I think the one year was 2015 where we should have played each other. I think it was Eshelman was absolutely carving up Vanderbilt, and it was the 7th or 8th inning, and next thing you know, I think there was a lightning delay, and so they had to resume the game the next day, and I think Kendall, the outfielder for Vanderbilt, hit a home run to put him up, and they ended up losing that ball game, which if that lightning wouldn't have happened, Eshelman would have thrown a complete game, and we would have been facing Fullerton in the winner's bracket. That would have been fun and interesting to be, in a dugout across from Fullerton. But yeah, no, I took a lot of pride that they were there. And then, now, like you talked about, having a group of, there was a handful of guys where, like you said, they were here for 4 years and they went to Omaha every single year, and I think when you're in the midst of that, you don't think it's a big deal, but now when you get removed from it, you understand how hard that really actually is to not just get there one time, but to get there 4 years in a row. is just mind-boggling to really think about. So, the other thing too is, Fullerton's coming out to play us, in May, and really excited about. We were supposed to go out there, but we actually ended up switching it for them to come out to TCU. But I'm super excited. I have a really good relationship with Coach Dietrich, and ever since I was at Fullerton, and we worked a couple camps together when he was at UCI, and our personalities and sense of humor kind of meshed really well from day one. And then after I left and he took over at Fullerton, and then to see him, East Carolina, and now to be the head man at Fullerton, it's really awesome. I think Fullerton's in awesome hands with him, and great personality. He's the pitcher whisperer, phenomenal pitching coach. He's going to have Fullerton rocking and rolling in no time.
You kind of stole a little bit of my thunder of my last question, so I'll end it with this one. You faced the Titans as an assistant coach, but this is going to be your first time filling out a lineup card against your alma mater, trading it with Coach Dietrich at home plate out there in Fort Worth. You going to approach it any different, or treat it just like you will when you play Florida State, who you guys are going to be welcome into Lupton Stadium in February?
Yeah, no, all the same. With probably just a little bit, Jason and I will probably have a laugh at home plate about something. But speaking of that 2013 Fullerton team that came into TCU and swept us, you want to tell that might have been the best college team that I've ever been in the opposite dugout against. When you look at that team, when you have Garza and Eshelman and Wiest as a rotation with Carlos Lopez at first and Matty Orloff at second, Pedroza at short. I think Chappie was playing third, Wallach behind the plate, J.D. Davis, King Salt. I mean, you just had player after dude after dude after dude. It was like, Lorenzen in center.
Mm-hmm.
It was the most ridiculous team I'd ever seen from the other dugout. Anything they wanted to do, they did, and they absolutely just dominated us. It was like, holy smokes. And that's how crazy baseball is. They don't make it to Omaha. It's just sometimes it takes some luck and some the right timing, and sometimes, in my opinion, like I said, the best team doesn't always win. It's the one that plays the best, and you got to be playing the best at the right time and have some breaks. So it's a crazy sport, but that's why we love it.
We'll end on this one. Give us a little bit of preview of what we can expect to see out of your Horned Frog team, not only for the year, but when the Titans go out there and play you.
Yeah, so that's at the end of the year when, our conference is kind of weird too. We have 2 off weeks through the year, so it's hard to try to find some schools that are really good programs that have that same off week that late in the year. So I'm really fortunate that Fullerton did and does. And so, our club's it's always going to be built on pitching and starting pitching. Hopefully at that point, we've had guys established for a while. We have a mix of some speed and some power. Usually at that time of the year, it's going to be pretty hot, and not super hot, but it'll be hot and it'll be windy. And the ballpark plays a little bit different than it does in Southern California. Southern California is a little bit more neutral or straight up. Not a lot of, weather factors in terms of the ballpark. But out here, kind of in Texas, the wind can get going. And so there'll be some different things that they'll have to deal with, which won't be that big a deal. But it'll be a great series. It'll be fun. At that time of the year, the students are just getting out of school, so hopefully they're still around, and it'll be a packed stadium, and watch some really great baseball towards the end of the season.
Well, Coach, really appreciate you taking the time and being so generous with your time, especially right here, kind of in this dead period of right before Christmas and all that. But very much appreciate you taking the time for us. Best of luck to you. Best of luck to your team this year, except for that 3 days in May when the Titans are out there. But we hope to see you, looking forward to seeing you in May, and then hopefully the Titans and the Horned Frogs will be able to see each other in Omaha this year.
That's the plan. I'd love it. Are you going to be out there? You coming out this way in May?
I'm going to try to swing it. I'm not 100% sure, depending on I'm also a high school umpire, so
okay.
That's smack dab in the middle of high school playoffs.
Take the week off. You're fine.
just say no. I'm all right. I'm gonna make the trip out there. So we're gonna try. Would definitely love to be able to do it. But if you guys go to Omaha, or if Titans go to Omaha, definitely going to be blocking that one out for sure.
Very cool. Well, thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it. Love talking Titan baseball anytime I can.
Thanks for listening to the 1544 Miles to Omaha podcast. Feel free to visit our website, calstateomaha.com. While there, you can order an official Cal State Omaha t-shirt from the merch store. Please subscribe to the 1544 Miles to Omaha podcast and share with family and friends. It's easy. It takes just a few seconds. The 1544 Miles to Omaha podcast is an On the Lam Enterprises production and is not affiliated with Cal State Fullerton or Titan Baseball.